because of the constitutional amendment, presidents come and presidents go, but Her Great and Glorious Majesty, Queen Elizabeth, by the grace of God, Empress of the world, still continues to reign. Look, I can't pass up an opportunity. In serving parish ministry, there's lots of folks who like to ask for the support of congregations, but I think that one of the most popular programs that people support in many, many congregations of all different faith traditions is Heifer International. It's a wonderful program, and you're going to hear something about it today, its history and the work that it does throughout the world. But it is a program that appeals to lots of adults and as well as the young children, because when they get to provide resources to buy all sorts of animals to help folks throughout the world care for themselves and support themselves, it's a very popular and attractive program. To explain that to us today, we have three speakers. First is Mark Nesseroff, who's in the center here of the three speakers. Mark is a 1966 graduate of a small and up-and-coming university called Penn State. Mark was actually a hog farmer for 25 years, then worked in the financial services field for 18 years. Mark has been a volunteer with Heifer International for over 35 years, and he's been a member of the National Heifer Board from 1986 to 1992. I've known Mark for about 20 years through our Camp Nawaqua and other activities in our synod. Mark is actually a member of the Mannheim Rotary Club, where he's previously served as both president and treasurer. Norma Good is sitting to my immediate right. Norma was born in Lancaster County, and after living in Perry County, moved back to Lancaster County after retirement. She's worked in retail sales, as an employee of Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services, and I dare say, Norma, that's probably where I first got to meet you and work with you. And it also serves as an assistant manager at 10,000 Villages. That's the fair trade operation, one in Lancaster and one in Mechanicsburg. And Norma worked there. She's been involved with Heifer since 1991, and she and her husband both serve on the Southeast Pennsylvania Heifer Volunteer Committee, and Norma serves as the Area Volunteer Coordinator for Southeast Pennsylvania. In that, she coordinates displays and works with local congregations to recruit volunteers. In 2003, Norma was named as one of 3 persons to receive an honorable mention status as a congregational volunteer and was listed in Heifer's World Arc magazine. She serves as the volunteer coordinator for relief projects for the Lower Susquehanna Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And in October 2011, she traveled with 8 others from the United States on a Heifer study tour to Honduras and Central America. And finally, we have Phil. I was told to pronounce his name Ogline. Ogline, did I do that good? Right. And Phil was born and raised on a dairy farm in southwestern Pennsylvania. He served 3 years in the United States Marine Corps. He's a graduate of Penn State, getting his bachelor's, his master's, and his doctorate in agricultural education from Penn State. You gave him a lot of money over the years. He taught agricultural education at Garden Spot High School in Eastern Lancaster County School District for 32 years. He served as lead instructor at Michigan State University for a special program in rural resources education for 2 years, and he worked part-time as an adjunct professor at Penn State for 13 years, instructing and supervising student teachers in agricultural education. He's been a supporter of Heifer International for over 35 years, serves on the Southeast Pennsylvania Volunteers Committee for the last 13 years, and has participated in Heifer International sponsored work study tours in Honduras and Cameroon. So I'd like you to welcome these 3 speakers, Norma, Mark, and Phil, and we will hope to hear some wonderful things about Heifer International.
Well, I see Patty hasn't changed one bit. Well, greetings from the Mannheim Rotary. We're not the 35th. Well, we are a small club, but we are the most active club. We got that award 3 out of the last 4 years. So we are active for a little club of about 22. Go ahead. How many of you people have heard of Heifer before, Heifer International? Okay, looks pretty good. Now, does everyone here know the definition of a heifer? Ooh, where are the hands? Put them up. My wife and I run a bed and breakfast at home now, and we're retired. I don't know if we're retired. We always like, when I take them on a dairy tour, and I ask that question, what's a heifer? Well, they look at me. Well, anyways, I'm going to give you a definition. If you don't learn anything today, you're going to learn what a heifer is. Since I better know, since I went down in science at Penn State, I better know. A heifer is a female cow until it has its first calf. So when a calf is born, it's either a heifer or a bull. Have you ever heard that? There are heifers or bulls when they're born, and they're a heifer until they have their first calf. So you remember that. Because really that whole concept, and I'm going to take that going into the whole concept how heifer got started. The individual's name was Dan West. He was a relief worker for the Brethren Church. And he was a dairy farmer, partially in his background in Indiana. And he worked a lot within the Brethren Church, and he was over there doing relief at the Spanish Civil War at that time when there was a lot of hunger and poverty after that time. And he, being an Indiana farmer, saw the hillsides, the grass, green pastures, and he says, why am I giving out powdered milk when they can have a cow and have milk every day? That's how simple the idea got started, what heifer is. Today it's a $120 million project. A little bit different, but that's how the idea started back in the late 30s when Dan West was giving out milk, because he also had to, at that time they didn't have enough milk for the amount of people they had, and they had to ration it, and that really hurt him, and that's where this idea came from. Well, heifer started, originally it took him about 8 years, 7, 8 years because of World War II, and my wife likes I always tell her, I give this date. It's the day she was born, when the first heifers left the U.S. and went to Puerto Rico, June 14th, 1944. So heifer has been in existence since that time, and I said it's up to 120 million. We're going to get into more detail. I'm going to give you more generalities and how heifer got started, and that's basically very simple. Dan West's wife gave this title, and all heifer employees that I had been involved with over the years says it's not this simple, but it's a cup. As simple as, I'm getting it wrong. It's simple as it's not a cup, but a cow. It's that simple. Well, all heifer employees say it's not that simple to get the cow from here and get it to there. A little more to it than that. All people who get monies or get animals from heifer, and it's a lot more than just heifers. It's any animal in any area of the world that can be used for food production, for making income off of, is used within heifer. Have you ever heard of the animal called grass cutters? Well, they never did. They probably heard of heifer quicker than they heard of grass cutter. Grass cutters are rodent in Africa, where they used to hunt them and sell them to restaurants. Some people made a living that way. Heifer designed a project where people could raise these animals and sell them and make income, which is what happened. Any animal you can think of is now used within heifer. But heifer has kept the name since the very beginning, as I said. The first animals were heifers, faith, hope, and charity. Also remember that. First 3 heifers are left, that was their names. Our 3 of us are local volunteers in the Mannheim area, Lancaster County area. We've been doing it for quite a few years. We used to gather animals back then in the very beginning, and that's how our local committee got started back in the late, well, I think the middle 60s. And as heifer changed, the world changes, heifer changes, and we as the volunteers also had to change. And we're not gathering animals anymore. We're doing things like we're doing here today. And it's informing the public. And one of the things that really made a change, and you probably also don't know this, that there was through our government, there was a program called U.S. Aid, where organizations could send animals like we did, ship them around the world, and our government paid for the transportation, which made it very good for heifer because we could get the good genetics coming from our areas and ship them anywhere in the world. When I was on the board, I remember sitting there that day listening to changes that were happening, and I thought, oh my gosh, we lost. The announcement came to us, the government's going to quit the USA program. That was 1989. And if you remember, if you hear in the news, around that time, and a half a year later, the dairy buyout program was also in existence. That was to reduce the dairy herds in the U.S. All that came together, and we quickly got heifers moved in that dairy buyout before we lost that program. So now we, as local volunteers, don't gather animals anymore. We do other things, try to inform the public. And just to show how much heifer has grown, heifer when I went on the board in 1986, our budget was around 8 to 9 million. And as I said, now it's over 120. We have grown tremendously. Heifer is known in international circles as the leading organization in providing people development, because that's what we do. We teach people how to raise animals, how to keep them, so that they can get income for themselves and feed themselves, and then send their kids to school. I just remember a little story that these two have heard me say this more often, but it put an imprint in my mind when I was on the board, because I had some other little individual struggles at the time. And this program director came back and giving his project reports to us as board members, and he said this one young lady, this was down I think in Alabama, had received a goat, and the day he was out doing his inspection, she wasn't there. But he said he was going into the neighboring town to visit the other projects. She came back that afternoon, and she wanted to meet him very badly. And so what she did is, I think she had to walk, the story said that she had to walk 15 miles. And all she wanted to tell him was, I can put butter on my biscuits now. She did not have butter before because she didn't have milk. You imagine that? You and I take that for granted. Put butter on their biscuits. That kind of left me a lasting impression that whatever struggles we have, it's kind of mild compared to a lot of other people in the world. So at this point in time, we're going to turn the rest of the part of the program over to the next two speakers. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'd like to share with you some of the experiences I had when I visited Honduras, Central America, on a heifer trip with 9 area volunteer coordinators from different states. Our purpose was to visit heifer projects there and to meet the recipients who are on their way to becoming self-sufficient because of heifer training and animals. Heifer works in rural areas with limited access and where no one else is helping. Honduras is one of the poorest countries in the world with 70% unemployment. 75% of the families live below the poverty level, and an average family lives on $1 a day. 35% of the children are malnourished, and the average school attendance is 4.2 years if they live near roads, usually dirt, and can walk 1, 2, or even 3 miles to school if there is a school nearby. There is no public welfare system, and there is little help or cooperation from the government. Did you notice earlier that I said heifer gives training before I mentioned animals? The recipients receive not only training in caring for the animals before they receive them, but they also receive training in the importance of consuming diets better than just corn and beans, of having safe water supplies, better housing, medical care, and education for their children. Many times we were told that training is one of the biggest parts of our lives. We visited heifer farm schools where farmers are taught to diversify their crops and are provided fruit trees, plants, seeds, tools, and bees, as well as cows and chickens to provide food while they are raising their crops. The aim is to have integrated farms where people can produce almost all of their own food. Fish ponds are built and stocked with red tilapia. Irrigation systems are set up, and metal grain storage bins are placed in houses to keep staples like beans and corn safe from insects in the heat. Heifer's concern for the environment is that very important. It's a strong concern for the people of Honduras, as the unemployed who struggle to raise enough food for feed their families depend on the land for their lives. We saw eco stoves built that save 70% of the firewood and eliminate 90% of the smoke. We saw biodigesters that use manure from cows, chickens, and even human waste from latrines. And by adding manure and water every day for 40 days, it makes methane gas for cooking. Keeping animals in pens and bringing food to them, called zero grazing, allows manure to be collected and also used as fertilizer. We visited a composting project that, with the help of worms, makes organic fertilizer and even liquid fertilizer for coffee trees. The fertilizer bit is so important because the land has been stripped of all nutrients for generations and generations. A project called Seeds of Hope produces potato seeds locally rather than the expense of buying them from Holland and Chile. It dries bean seeds for the next year's planting and is working to provide a type of corn seeds so they can be used more than 1 year and avoid cross-pollination from neighbors as far as 1/4 or 1/2 miles away. We visited several bee projects. A new small one of just 10 families told us to go back to the U.S. and tell everyone that they said mucho gracias. A large one has a woodworking shop to make their own boxes and frames, and a metal shop to make their own blowers and screens, both to use there in their project and to sell to other beekeepers. Wood shavings are put out to have the neighbors get them and use them for food. As I said, nothing is wasted. They sell honey and make cough syrup, soap, body cream, candy, candles, and antibiotics that are one of the best for the human body. One co-op has trucks and move their hives to the south when it is too cold in the north for blossoms to flower. This means they can harvest their honey 7 times a year instead of 2 times a year. We visited a large cashew producing project of 72 members from 5 groups. Just Cashews is the name of the project, and they are sold in the U.S., Nicaragua, and El Salvador. Heifer helps by paying in a strange way. They pay the yearly registration approvals and certifications so that they will comply with the USDA requirements and then can be sold in the U.S. One village of 11 families now has safe water and a school and hopes to have a health center and a high school in the future. Another group of 200 people has electricity and hopes to fix roads in the future. This co-op helps people outside the co-op also through the passing on of gift by providing cows, chickens, and fruit trees. Did you talk about this? Okay, I'll explain passing on the gift to you. When the person agrees to get an animal or seeds or trees or beads or bees, whatever, they have to sign an agreement whether they can write their name, whether they use an X, or whether they use a fingerprint, a thumbprint. They have to agree that they will pass on the firstborn of the litter to someone else in their community. They also then pass on the knowledge and the training that they have as to how to raise the feed for the animal, how to build a pen, how to weigh the animal, how to give shots, and so forth. So imagine being someone on the very bottom of the pile that has nothing and is the poorest in the community that got that first animal very shortly when that offspring is born, that they are then able to be the hero and do the same for someone else in their community. The highlight of our trip was the passing on the gift ceremony, where we saw 4 women and 1 man receive cows. And by the way, when they send these cows, either a bull goes along with them or they're pregnant when they send them or to give them to the people. The co-op was called Farmers Organized and Producing Hope. It was a very celebratory affair, and we were honored guests from the U.S. Food, singing, dancing, and a skit were part of this event. One young man played a guitar, and he sang a song about a car owner whose car didn't want to move, and the owner couldn't push it. But when he got other people to help, and they all pushed together, they could move it. He related this to the fact that Honduras is full of pains that oppress the poor, so all must push together, and he asked Heifer International to help push this car.
They brought me along to make sure that you get out of here on time. So that's my situation right now, that I hope to do that. I'd like to bring greetings to you from the world headquarters in Little Rock, Arkansas. That's where Heifer's headquarters is located. But it's more of a privilege to bring to you greetings from those people who I've witnessed receiving these animals passed on in Honduras, Cameroon, Africa. When, after it was all done, and we as work study group there, they certainly said to us, please, please take back to all the donors in the United States how much we appreciate the fact that we can maintain our dignity and provide food and nutrition, send our children to school, and maybe put a pair of sandals on my shoes. So that's my message to you today, basically, is everybody that I witnessed receiving these animals, they want us to pass that along. And Mark, I did have the privilege of eating some of those let me start again. The cat, Cain, help me again. Grass cutters. Thank you. Grass cutters, which is a rodent about the size of a groundhog. And every community that we visited, they wanted to feed you and feed you. And so they laid out this display of food, and on this was a heaping plate full of brown meat. And it was rat skeletons, tin rats, living under the ground, cane rats. And the reason that Heifer sponsors those is they can eat the grass in the community, so Heifer goes in there and educates them how to better build pens, keep them cages, and then they kept the male separate from the females, and they were so pleased to show us how they pregnancy test those females. But to eat that, everybody said that it tastes like chicken. Well, in a way it did. The texture was there, and I could eat it again. My wife happened to be with me, and she's very sensitive to her stomach. She tried it, and basically we both went back for a second, so it was good. I was a retired ag educator, and as a Heifer volunteer, this provides me an avenue that I can continue to advocate the importance of agriculture in feeding the world's population. Being an educator, I love tidbits of knowledge. So let me share with you at least this. Agriculture in Pennsylvania is Pennsylvania's #1 industry. We, all of us, must try to keep it that way by encouraging young people to continue in production agriculture and agribusiness enterprises. Why? Ag production employs approximately 2% of the world's population. That's not very many. 2% of the world's population is involved in agriculture. I mean, in the U.S. population, not world. In some countries, it's 80% is the employment. 2% the production, and about 20% are very important in the agribusiness services to farmers. So it's approximately 20 to 22% of the U.S. population involved in agriculture. As a volunteer, why can I support Heifer? I look at it basically 3 reasons. One, they're one of the most efficient users of money whenever we make a donation, in the fact that they use about 73% of our donations for program development, which means about 27% goes to support services. Number 2, Heifer does go in and survey the situation and analyze the catastrophic area before they allow animals to go in there. So, and then they, as was mentioned here, they educate the individuals how to take care of them. So I know that that animal is not going to die the next day or the next week, because they know how to provide pasture, provide fodder for them, provide nutrition, and they're going to introduce artificial insemination now so that we don't ship any animals from the United States because of the expense involved, and that improves the genetics of their herd. Okay, many other reasons I could attempt to give you in regards to Heifer, but I'd like to emphasize one point that Norman made about passing on the gift. I witnessed those recipients, and 5 out of 7 that were receiving cows that day were single mothers. And 5 out of the 7, or 5 out of those 5 females, could not read or write their name. So they had to give their thumbprint as the signing of the agreement that they will pass on the first female offspring to another needy person in the community. They do not own that animal they receive from Heifer until they fulfill that obligation. So it's a second agreement that they must fulfill before they actually own that animal as theirs. So that's the second reason, passing on the gift. Our gift keeps going indefinitely, because they have to pass that on. Third reason, well, I'll skip that one because of the time here. How can you and I involve ourselves in helping to feed the world's population and maintain the dignity of individuals? I had if you have a favorite aunt or uncle, grandmother, or you're that grandchild that needs nothing, they have everything, they need nothing, was at Christmas, purchase a flock of animals, a pig, a flock of chickens, a pig, a llama, honeybees, a water buffalo, and give it to that individual in his honor or their honor, and Heifer will provide you with a gift or a card that says that they received that particular animal in their name. Recently, I had a niece who attended a wedding, and I thought it was such a marvelous idea when she wrote back. She said the couple did not want any gifts presented to them that were being married. But they did say, if you'd like to donate a share of or an animal in our name to Heifer International, I thought that was just wonderful. The couple even bought favors in the name of the guests there in their honor and sent it on to Heifer. I thought that was one of the things I wanted to pass on to you. Commercial time. Attending, how can we also help to support Heifer? By attending an informational fundraising banquet coming up in April the 16th at the Hempfield Church of the Brethren in Mannheim area, and that starts at 6 o'clock in the evening, and there's one then on Wednesday, April the 17th at the Brethren Village Retirement Facility along Littis Pike in Lancaster County. If you can't, and that's a luncheon. If you can't make those, we also are sponsoring one in York County here at Aldersgate United Methodist Church on Monday, October the 14th, and the next evening at Memorial Lutheran Church in Shippensburg at 6 o'clock also. So if you want to sponsor a table of 8 like around here for $150 and bring some guests, you'll hear an informative message be presented by Artist Neal, who is the president of the foundation. We heard of the Rotary Foundation, and Heifer also has one that helps to guide us along the way. So there are many other ways that we could also be of assistance to feeding the world's population. But if you have any questions or need resources or need a speaker at some particular activity where Heifer can represent it, see us. Norma has some cards to give that would give you who to contact for speakers, so we would be glad to do that. We also have voluminous resources available and we can get those in bulk quantity at any activity you would have. I'd like to pause at that particular point and say, are there any questions or questions that you would have for either one of us to present?
Any questions?
Okay. Thank you so much for all.